Good evening, I'm Katrina Skepper.
And I'm Tanya Beckett, and welcome to VIP. It's now 50 years since the most famous and mysterious UFO incident of all time, the alien crash at Roswell in New Mexico. We'll be talking about it with author Philip Mantle later.
Not meeting all those little green men as well, I hope.
Yes, I know. Well, we've invited a few of them onto the set, so stay tuned for that.
But first, to a rock musician who burst onto the scene in 1969, a loud, raucous sound described as an antidote to the peaceful hippie era. He is master of shock rock, Alice Cooper, who entertained audiences with hits School's Out, No More Mr. Nice Guy, and Elected, and amazed them with his theatrical stage shows, accompanied by a boa constrictor. VIP caught up with him in the middle of his European tour. Let's look at him in action first. Alice, I want to take you back to 1969 when you burst onto the rock and roll scene, and the press immediately said that you were the antidote to the peace and love generation.
Or they said that we drove the stake through the heart of the peace-love generation.
It, yeah. More cruel.
Well, no, it was a perfect slot to fill. You know, you're in a band, and there's 20,000 other bands trying to get that spot on stage in Los Angeles. And we're looking at all the bands, and we're going, what are they doing? What aren't they doing? They're all doing the same thing. What hasn't been done yet? Well, this whole anti-hippie thing hasn't been done yet. And it's something that we were all from Phoenix. We weren't really into this, whole thing. We were much more into movies and the glamour of rock and roll. We wanted Ferraris. We didn't want, an old beat-up VW bus. We wanted Ferraris. We were in it for all the right reasons, We wanted blondes and Ferraris and switchblades and, So anyways, I think that when they got this package and with the horror on top of it, we liked the horror because of the fact that it had a great sense of humor to it.
I was going to say, because the horror was obviously the shock value, but you mentioned the humor, and there was also a lot of that.
It was never any more shocking than a Vincent Price movie. Everything that we did, the guillotine, those were directly right out of any of those, Hammer movies.
But did you, things like the beheading and...
We did them very well.
You must have had to study magic for that.
I'm telling you, the beheading was so well done. It wasn't a schlock trick. I had to learn it from stuntmen. And the closer the blade actually got to really cutting your head off, the better it looked. So by the end of the tour, the blade was only missing me by about 6 inches. And it was a 40-pound blade. Oh, I'll tell you, it was like a matter of, it was really a split-second thing. And there was no like, check thing on it. If I wouldn't have been at the right place at the right time, it would definitely do the trick.
One of your stage companions was a boa constrictor. Was he a friend, or was he just part of the act?
Oh, yeah, they're the greatest pets in the world. For one thing, they're about as vicious as a puppy, unless they're hungry. And they only eat once a month.
So you just have to keep out of the way when they're
throw
hungry.
it a Holiday Inn maid every once in a while, and it's good for a month. But they really, they're very strong. They could, if one decided to go around you and I at the same time, it would take 8 people to get it off. They're that strong. Just the tail, if the tail goes around you like that, it would take 3 people to get that tail off, because it's all their own muscle.
But the theatrics on stage was really what kind of set you apart. You've already said it from the rest. But from your audience's point of view, it's what they kind of fell in love with, because everything you tackled that was dangerous, they presumably did or wanted to do.
It was dangerous, and at the same time, there were so many rock heroes and no rock villains. The only other rock villain, really, was Jim Morrison, and he died. And he was sort of the generation right before us. And we were... I knew Jim Morrison, and I knew he was dark in a whole different way, real sultry kind of way, whereas Alice was dark in a Captain Hook kind of way.
You talk about Alice almost in the third person, as though it was somebody else. Obviously, it was the group as well.
Well, I'm Alice, but we're talking about that Alice.
That one.
That one, the one that I don't even hang out with.
Is that how you've always been? One person on stage, Alice Cooper, with the band, with all the theatrics, and then a quieter person off stage?
Yeah, I've always had to create the character to do the lyrics, things that I would never do. I needed the character to do that because of the fact that he was bigger than life. And Alice is right now. When I play Alice on stage, it's fun to play him for an hour and a half. I look forward to tomorrow night, in Birmingham or wherever we are, to Wolverhampton,
and the rest
Squire,
of Europe.
Shire. Because I get to be Alice for an hour and a half. And when the first note of the first song, Alice bursts out on the stage and does his hour and a half. When the last chord is struck, he's gone. He's the Phantom of the Opera. I don't know where he goes, but I know that he's fun to be with for a while.
But I also read that there was a time when, unlike many rock and rollers, you weren't into the drug scene. Nonetheless, you had a severe problem with drink. What actually got you to the point when you were able to detach yourself from the stage, Alice, and say, hey, I've got a problem, I need to go and sort myself out?
It was always my problem. Alice never drank. For the hour and a half or 2 hours Alice was on stage, he never had a drop. But it was always the other 22 hours me drinking in order to become Alice. When I stopped drinking, 15 years ago I stopped drinking, I haven't had a drop in 15 years, I found that now it's fun that I can have my own life. I can go and I can do anything I want to do. And when it's time to be Alice, I don't need the alcohol to turn into him. I just have to show up on stage and he'll be there. You know, so it's actually a very pretty healthy therapy. I think everybody needs an Alice.
Sure.
And a stage and an audience, and it's sort of like flushing yourself out. All this, you know, I feel after a show, I have no animosity to anybody because Alice has gotten rid of all of it.
The theatrics, which is what you really invented for the stage, blending them with rock and roll, was really the ground that you broke. But now there are plenty of other bands imitating or that have done the same sort of thing since. What do you think you still have over them? I'm
still having fun with it. I still have more energy than probably any of those bands put together. You know, when I get up on stage and I play Alice to the hilt. I play him till I can't breathe anymore on stage, and because that's the only way he'll go on stage is full burst. You know, so when people come to see the show, I don't know what they're expecting, but when they get done seeing it, they go, "Geez, that was exhausting." You know, this guy never stops, you know, and the show starts in fourth gear and it never gets out of fourth gear.
Your audience and your fans love to see you performing live, and the theatrics is part of the whole act and who you are. But I would imagine that when you're in the studio, that has to be a lot more disciplined.
Yeah.
You've got a new album.
Yes.
But that's still got all of your gems, the old, or some of them.
Yeah.
The old material. And
well, it was time to do, first of all, it was time to update the audience. You know, 20 years later, the last live album we did was 1977. And it was time to update the audience, what you sound like in 1997.
Can you only get that in a live album, do you think?
I think so. And I think that it's a lost art. You know, I could take any band anywhere on the streets out here in London, put them in a studio, make them sound great. But then put them in a club with about 300 people and then see how great they are. You know, that's the trick, is you have to be a great band first. You have to be able to play to an audience first and be really tight before you should ever even go into a studio. You know, I think that you have to prove yourself as a band, then go into a studio, instead of going into a studio first and then going in front of an audience.
Now, I know that, surprisingly, perhaps, your relaxation these days is spent on the golf course.
Well, don't I look like a golfer? Don't I look like I belong out there with Tiger? Hey.
Tiger and you go fine well together. You probably love to be on the stage with you, actually.
Yeah, probably. You know, most athletes want to be rock stars, and most rock stars either want to be athletes, you know.
What did you used to do then? I mean, there was obviously this kind of personality clash. The fact that mothers used to lock up their daughters in fear that they might turn up at one of your concerts. What did you do then with your spare time that wasn't dangerous?
I guess, you know, to be honest with you, in those days, what you did was you did 2 albums a year, and you never quit touring. You absolutely never, you didn't live anywhere. You lived on the road. For about 7 or 8 years, we didn't live anywhere. If you were going to send me a letter, and you'd say, "What's your address?" I'd have to draw a blank, and I'd think, okay, where am I going to be in 4 days? Send it to Chicago at the Holiday Inn. I'll be there. You know, and that's really what my address would be, because I didn't have an address.
So
we were true
gypsies.
Now. Yeah. Now it's you know, I mean, it's a regular lifestyle. I go out when I want to go out. I know I've got 3 or 4 months in the summer where I'm going to be doing Europe and America and Australia.
You're still touring, you're still producing albums, and obviously loving it.
Oh, I love it, yeah. Because now I don't do it constantly. If I had to tour 4 years, if I was looking to a 4-year tour, I would hate it.
For someone who's spanned 3 generations and is still scooping up new fans, what do you think the secret is of longevity in rock and roll?
You have to write the songs. You have to bake the cake before you put the icing on it. To me, the cake is the songs. You have to have a volume of songs that people love. and then you can start putting the icing on. To me, the icing is the theatrics.
No doubt there are more theatrics to come in the upcoming tour. What can we expect?
Oh, there's lots of great stuff in this. We got a little West Side Story, a little Clockwork Orange, a little, well, I get it from Dwight Fry. It's a little Straight Jacket stuff, lots of hand props. It'll be fun. It'll be full-out Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper, good luck with your tour, and keep on doing it for us. And thank you for joining us on VIP.
Thank you.
Oh, great rocker.
Yeah, indeed. It's less makeup, but the same amount of hair. But wasn't he the chap who bit a chicken's head off on stage?
Well, actually, he did tell me, because I asked him that, but I thought it might be a bit revolting a story to tell. But in fact, the truth is that the audience threw a live chicken onto the stage, you know, because
you always bring one with you, obviously.
Well, he had his boa constrictor, so why not have a chicken, you know? And the chicken came on stage, and he picked it up, thought the chicken could fly, and threw it back into the stage. And then apparently the audience ripped it apart, and then threw the various bits back on stage. And the next day, the headline was, you know, the rumour mill in those days surrounding him was quite great. Alice Cooper, you know, bites the head off chicken and drinks the blood, which was fairly revolting.
How unpleasant, but always take barbecue sauce if you're going to one of his concerts.
It's not true, because he's
very
such a
nice man.
Very
nice man. Very, very nice man.
He
We're
doesn't
taking a
like
quick break
barbecue
now
sauce.
on VIP, and we'll be very nice man. We're taking a quick break now on VIP, and we'll be right back with UFO investigator Philip Mantle, who'll be telling us about the so-called alien crash. No chickens involved, landing at Roswell, New Mexico, exactly 50 years ago.
Join us then.